here I am, under the stand, and I'm delighted to say I've been joined under the stand by Hampton and Richmond manager Alan Julian, but also Slough Town manager Scott Davies.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah, we're good. Good.
Good.
Looking forward to it.
Let's get to it straight away. Why is the manager of Hampton and why is the manager of Slough sat next to each other? Tell us about the Alan Julian, Scott Davies footballing story.
Well, I think we just brought him in to have a punch-up to start with. But no, I first played against Scotty when he was at Aldershot when I was at Stevenage. Was it 2006, something like that, 2007?
2007, 8.
Yeah, so that's where we first sort of come across each other. And then I worked for a company where I met Scott at Slough, and our relationship just grew from there. And yeah, I'd like to say we're very close friends now.
Yeah, 100%. Jules rang me and said that there was this sort of idea of doing it. And if I had to pick one, then listen, it'd be Jules. I think we've got mutual respect for one another. Something different as well. Obviously, we've not done it before. So yeah, let the fun commence.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously, you mentioned there about you've got got a good relationship together already. But you were a goalkeeper, you're a skillful midfielder. You've been not just in non-league. You've been obviously higher up. Right from the top with yourself. You've been involved in football a long time, both of you. Between you, have you? When you've come up against each other, like I said, is it mutual respect before the game, but knowing how you two are?
It's quite funny, actually. I went on.
I knew he was going to say this.
I went on Google this morning and I was trying to find if I'd scored against Jules before, and I haven't. Right, Simon Royce was in goal for Julian, and I was gutted. I was thinking, I wonder if it was Jules, because I thought I could just chuck that into conversation. But no, to be fair, listen, I've always known how good Jules has been as a goalkeeper. We've come up against each other a number of times, probably early on in my career, when Jules is probably a lot more established than I ever was. So, yeah, obviously doing it now at a different level, completely different roles as well, rather than being a midfielder and a goalkeeper, obviously as two managers. Yeah, it's great fun for us and something that I know that I'm proud of, and so is Jules. Yeah,
there's nice moments actually. Looking back, definitely very competitive. I've always played very competitive as a Scot, but I think I remember a scenario where I was playing against Slough a couple of years ago, and I've struck the ball and I've gone for a quick early attack and I've miskicked the ball, and I'm obviously really disappointed. And there was a moment that lasted about 2 seconds. I've seen Scotty down the end of the pitch just giggling at me, and it's just a moment where you're like,
you nearly hit my mum and dad in the stand.
Yes,
that's the problem.
Yeah, one of my better ones.
No, I think we've always had that competitive edge. I think goes back to Stevenage Aldershot was the first sort of time we ended up winning the league, and then you got to the playoffs, didn't you? So it goes back years, and that's the beauty of football. You meet so many great people along the way, but then you grow apart, and then all of a sudden you come back together. So yeah, I've always said to Jules, I'd love to have played with him, or if I was a little bit younger now, I'd love to have played in his side. So it's one of those, we speak all the time and try and help each other out. I think that's probably the thing that a lot of people don't realise.
Yeah. So you not just because you're both managers now. Obviously, you've been manager for a bit longer than Jules, and Jules has just assumed that role recently. You were speaking off pitch, so to speak. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't have the answers for management. I'm still young and I'm still learning. But as soon as Jules got the job, I called him and I pretty much tried to tell him everything that I knew, whether that's useful or not. And then obviously same with Luke. Obviously, like being in the building as well. Luke's a good friend of mine, so I rang Luke as soon as I heard he got the job, and just try and help, because even though we're against each other for 2 games a year, for the other 44, I want Hampton to do well.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, I mean,
likewise, Jules.
Like with Scotty, to be fair, he's someone, I'm not just saying this because he's sat in and he's a close friend of mine, but what he's achieved so far as a manager's incredible, to be honest. So if I can get a few little bits of advice from someone who's been in it and done what he's done so far, that can only help. So like I say, I'm very new to this. I have my own ideas, of course. I have my own ideas, my own ways that I believe that is going to work. But you got to learn off people along the way.
And with that in mind, I mean, I've known Jules a while, as a player and as one of the most competitive and most, competitive players on the pitch and off it, so focused. And I remember having a conversation with him a while ago, and management necessarily wasn't like people know they're going to be managers, they know they're going to be coaches. I think Jules was a little bit. Were you surprised when you heard that Jules was going to be the manager? Or...
Do you know the weirdest thing is, and this isn't me saying something out of turn, but I always find it quite surprising when goalkeepers become managers, because obviously they played in a position that's not been out on the pitch. But I now believe, and I strongly believe, having done it for almost 100 games, that it really doesn't matter. I think it's about the person that's actually steering the ship. You can have the best ideas in the world, you can have the biggest budgets in the world, But if you've not got a group of players that respect you, that will run through brick walls for you, that will take information on board, it doesn't really matter where you've been in life before that. We've seen so many great managers that have done the role and failed. But I know, and I'm not just saying it for effect, that if I was his manager, the other way around, if he was my manager, I'd give him absolutely everything. And so, yeah, I do find it complicated, I think, with the goalkeeper scenario, and obviously going out and coaching outfield, because if the roles were reversed and I had to go and coach goalkeepers, I would be completely flummoxed. I wouldn't know where to turn with it. I don't know anything about goalkeeping, and I say it all the time. Could you maybe come for that cross? Maybe could you move your feet? It's completely foreign to me. But I think goalkeepers can see everything from behind. They're used to being in goal. You've seen probably hundreds and hundreds of matches where you can see things going on, whereas you tell me about goalkeepers, I'm out.
It was a completely different position, isn't it? And, well, you're the third keeper in a row to be manager of Hampton and Richmond, so maybe there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah, there must be some sort of history there.
Yeah.
three goalkeepers in a row, yeah.
But Jules, just quickly, just in case people necessarily don't know, but what necessarily, you retired, you announced your retirement before the end of last season, and now you're manager. A, were you surprised that it's gone that way? And B, what maybe changed, your thinking, or what made you think, actually, no, I'm going to take this opportunity, or want this opportunity?
I think it's a well-known saying, like people say a week's a long time in football, and it's so true. I went from being a player last year to retiring to being a coach, to then the change happening in the summer, and you sort of don't know which direction you're going to go. I love football. Football's what I do. It's my life. And I was sort of sitting there thinking, what's next for me? Then the opportunity arose, and I thought about it, and I thought, actually, I really want to give this a shot, and I'll give it my all, and where that takes me, time will tell. But really excited to be here and to have the opportunity. Really excited to have a go at it. So let's see how we do.
So Jules was just saying there about how necessarily the opportunity came up, and sometimes you just got to grab them. Was it a similar situation with you?
It took me by surprise. So the previous managers sat myself and the vice captain down in the dugout before training on the Thursday. We had Hungerford away on the Saturday, and they told us they were resigning the day after. So I had to play against Hungerford, knowing that they were going to resign. So the team talk was a little bit false, and I was looking at them thinking, I know what's happening. Yeah. And they just said, we're telling you now so you can prepare a team for Tuesday. Took Tuesday in the Berks and Bucks Cup, which was great. Played Maidenhead, took them to penalties, which was good. Played in the FA Trophy on Saturday, won 3-0. And then on the Sunday morning, the club rang me and said, we want you to be manager. And there were some expletives. I just be honest with you, it took me by surprise. So I spoke to my wife, spoke to my mum and dad, and I also spoke to a couple of my old managers in the game, Gary Waddock and Brian McDermott. And I just said, what do I do? And it was Brian McDermott that turned around and said, just do it. So I went back to the club and said, right, I'll give it a go. I'd never managed before, didn't have a clue.
You had no plan. There was no plans, or you hadn't done the practice?
No, so I've always been a massive student of the game. I love watching football. I was probably the only player in the team that would watch the opposition every single week before we played them. So I'd sit down and get the logins off the old managers and say, can I have your password so I can go and watch what I'm going to face tomorrow or a couple of days' time. And sometimes they would allow me to do that and say, right, what do you think, and what do you think is going to be best? How do you think we're going to be best suited to set up? So they did involve me without any sort of seriousness to it. They didn't take my word in terms of shape and people, but they did ask me on occasions, what would you do? So I felt involved without being in a coaching role. So when I took over, I live on my scout now. I'm sure Jules will be the same this season, but just being a student of the game and learning, I've been like a sponge. I did want to get into management, probably at my hometown club where I grew up in Aylesbury. That was always my plan without actually telling anyone. I thought I'd go to step 4, go into sort of player manager role for the last sort of few years of my career and hopefully take over then. But I realised I was very fortunate to get a role or an opportunity at this level. There was a lot of people that did question me that I'd seen on Twitter and social media outlets, but that inspired me, it fueled me. So we did well last year as a group, but I know this season is going to be a really tricky one, so we'll see what it brings.
You mentioned that, and I think it's an important point. There's a lot of, it's a new thing that modern day managers, even at non-league level, step 3, step 4, step any level now, isn't it? Social media can be a really positive thing, but it can also, sit in the background and cause potential issues. As someone who has been through the 100, up to 100 games. What would you say to Alan Julian on that?
Well, yeah, it's really difficult. I think even now, still sometimes I pinch myself and have that sort of imposter syndrome, because I think, why me? Why did they give the job to me? And it does take a long time to convince yourself that you are doing pretty well at it. But as soon as it goes pretty well, there's a thing in football that it'll come back and slap you in the face. And we did have those moments last year. I alluded to it earlier off camera that I did try and resign last season after 7 games. We walked off the pitch at Tunbridge at home. We'd lost 5-2. I'm a very emotional person anyway. I care about the things that are important to me in life. So I walked off the pitch and I had tears in my eyes. My mum was sat in the stand crying. And it just hit me for 6. I thought, why am I putting myself through this, put my family through it, when I knew that I could probably go and sign for another club in the division or the league below, get paid probably the same amount of money, not have the stress. And fortunately for me, the club backed me and said, we don't want you to leave. You're the solution, not the problem. And they said, go and take the team for Dartford away on Tuesday night, see how we get on, and basically we'll sit down after. Lo and behold, we won that night. We went 10 unbeaten, and the rest is history. So, but yeah, I did question myself, and I think for Jules, he is so invested. He wants to do obviously so well. He'll give absolutely everything. There'll be no stone left unturned. But like you say, it's up, down, through the hedge, backwards, like dragged through a bush, kicked out the other side, and that's exactly what it's like. But obviously, you work Monday to Friday. You work so hard on trying to get it right, not for yourself, right? If you do it for yourself, then you might as well give up now. You do it for everyone else but yourself, because that's what you have to put your trust in. Like Jules can't go out there and go and score goals at the other end of the pitch, or he can't get in the nets every week, whatever. So you are putting trust in a lot of people to do it, but it's about getting the right people in and staying calm. I think like that's one thing for me last year as a young manager. I was probably 35 at the time, and yeah, I took it really badly. It was tough, because it comes from a point of care, and that was it.
Some very good learnings and lessons there, Jules, and I'm sure which you're probably aware of already. But knowing Jules as a player, obviously when he steps across that white line, it's all about winning.
Yeah.
It always has been. Even when you've come to Hampton the last 3-4 years, and the frustration of not being able to do that because of your injury in the last part. Talking about remaining calm and being an emotional person, probably like Scott yourself. How do you envisage, or how do you plan on being the best manager you can be, but whilst retaining that fierce desire but not overstepping the mark?
I think like one thing is going to be key for me is to, like, although I'm very new to managing, I'm not new to football. Yeah, I've been in football since I left school. I've played for some wonderful managers. I've been around some wonderful players, and there's lessons that you hope that you've learned along the way. Positive, negatives, ups, downs. Like the journey of football's nuts. It's crazy. So I understand that. I don't want to come across as if I'm naive that it's going to be easy, because I completely know this is going to be probably the hardest part of anything I've ever done in football before. But like I'm repeating myself now, I will give it my all, and just try to remain with a clear head as best as I possibly can. How's that going to look? Honestly, I don't know yet, because I haven't done it. I think a lot of people saw me as a player, and I wore my heart on my sleeve, and I think everyone saw that.
People enjoyed that as well, though, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. yeah. I
think opposition fans,
yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
You had good rapport with people, could see that you cared.
I think as a manager, where as a player, it's okay. It's about me and my team. Now there's so much more to consider and think about. You have to be a little bit more in tune with how you act and how you behave, and what comes out your mouth.
I think the team around you as well is so important.
Yeah.
So I've got really good people in the club, out the club, like externally and internally. So the assistant manager is absolutely brilliant for me. So he's like 10 years older, and I can bat things off him at times. You know what I mean? I say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Not only that, my dad's been in football, so I speak to him a lot. The owner at Slough has been in football. So there's a lot of people, and I've got some old managers that mentor me, similar to what Jules will do, I'm sure, as well. Like speak to old managers and say, right, this has happened. What would you do here? It's just about getting advice from everyone that you know, that's probably a little bit more savvy than what you are, and that's how you learn, in my opinion. I've tried to take the best things from my old managers, my previous managers that I really liked, and then the ones that I've not sort of been a fan of, I thought that's not coming anywhere near our football club. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to pick and choose which you think is best.
Yeah, and Jules, I know that you mentioned it as well, Scott. One of the first things you did was ring your old managers that you played under and stuff. I know you did that, Jules, and how important is that? But also remaining true to what you believe in as well, because obviously, you know, you're going to succeed and or not. Hope you by doing what you do. You know, Alan Julian, the manager, will be.
I think like I won't name the name of the manager that said this to me, but I was very much along the lines of I want to learn, I want to do this, I want to do this. Was before I even become a manager, and he actually looked at me and he winked and he said, "Don't learn too much." And I what he meant by that was don't be someone else, be you, sort of thing. It was. I took that as a really big compliment that he said that to me, because I was thinking, okay, how did he do it, and what was he? And I was looking at everyone else. But ultimately, you've got to be who you are, I think, because otherwise, I can't be Scott Davies. I can't be Graham Wesley. I can't be Martin Allen. I can't be Steve Coppell. Yeah. Like, these guys are fantastic managers that I've played for and learnt so much from. But I need to be me, but grasp from them what I think is going to help. And I touch on Scotty, actually, what you just said a minute ago. I truly believe that my team around me, even so far, the conversations we've had, the advice and the conversation, like the ideas we've bounced off each other has been brilliant. I'm so lucky to have such a good team around me. Like, that's one thing that he said that I thought about when he said it. I thought, yeah, I'm very lucky to have that as well.
So true.
Yeah, and you mentioned the support, didn't you? The support that when you were 7 games in, you're thinking this is not for me.
Yeah.
Who's to know what happens this season? As the season plays out, but someone like Ben, you know, with the chairman at Hampton and Richmond, we always hear about him. You and him are talking to each other all the time, aren't you? He's I would argue he's a football man.
No, it's really
sense, but
it's really nice.
Support.
Yeah, it's really nice when I see him calling. I go, right, I need an hour now.
Yeah.
I need that time. But do you know what? I would much rather it be that way than no conversation whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we agree, we disagree, we have conversation. It's brilliant. It's a really healthy relationship that I've got with Ben, and one that I'm very, very thankful for.
And you mentioned there, like, okay, there's a phone call, I'm going to be off for an hour here. Scott, you've, you know, with a family and everything, and the pressures that it brings. Knowing Jules as I do, he doesn't do anything football related, half-assed.
Yeah.
So that means he's going to be on the phone, and he has been, on the emails, watching My Scout, all these things. What advice would you say as someone who's been to nearly 100 games to make sure that that delicate balance?
Do you know what people say to you that you're working for a part-time football club, right? And that's the truth. It's a full-time job. So I know how much of an impact it has on people around me. Obviously, my wife she's extremely understanding. But at the same time, there are moments throughout the day where you just can't ignore people. You can't ignore the phones. You have to pick up the calls, because being at our level and not being one of the superpowers in the league, it could be a phone call that you end up picking up and something can come from it, and you have that fear of missing out. So I had a day at the back end of last season, probably a week or two into the season, and I counted, it was 113 phone calls in a day, and people were saying, like, who are you speaking to? And I said, it's constant, speaking to players, speaking to other managers, agents, people at the club, and it is relentless. So managing at this level should be a full-time job, in my opinion. I've got another full-time job that I do, so it's trying to balance them out.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I'm obviously full-time at Slough. And to be honest with you, I've never really had the aspirations to go and be a full-time manager. I've got a really good job that I enjoy outside of football. I love non-league because I've grown up watching my dad play it, and I've got a real good affiliation with that. So people say to me, oh, but would you want to go and manage in the Football League and things like that? I know where I'm at, and I'm like to think from a place of being humble and being grounded. I've seen so many better managers than me maybe not get to the certain level that they should, and there's a little bit of fear in the back of my mind to think, well, all these people put all their eggs in one basket in terms of want to get to the Football League. I'm not actually desperate to do that. It might come over time where I think I'd love to be able to do it, but yeah, for me, a lot of people speak openly about it. But yeah, I just love managing at Slough. It's all I've ever known in terms of management, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Talking about that environment, obviously they're similar clubs, I would argue, having, you know, been watching Hampton for a while and gone to Slough away, and, you know, seeing the fans come here. They're a similar club, like you said. They're not the superpower. They've got to eke out every little thing. There's a good atmosphere and a good background of people in the background. How important, like Jules, do you agree with Scott when he says that you've got to just make the most of every little thing, and one little thing might make such a big difference?
Yeah, 100%. like every manager that I've ever played for, whether I've got on well with them or I haven't, my respect level has gone up for them tenfold now. It really has. It really has. Because did I underestimate the job? No. But it's so much more. And I think you can put into it what you want to put into it. Like, you can go home whenever you want. You can turn your phone off whenever you want. You can, of course you can. But if you do that, what could the consequences be? So I mean, I've had to buy, I think, 3 extra phone chargers now for the house. But like Scotty's right. If you miss something, it could be costly. So you've got to, like I say, we're not the superpowers. We've got to work hard to achieve what we achieve.
But not only that, I've spoken to a manager that's managed very high up in England, and he's managed in the National League Prem. And he said to me the difference is at their level, everything's done for them. They've got a director of football, they've got an analyst, they've got the chief exec that will take phone calls. At our level, I don't know what it's like for Jules, but we don't have a director of football. We don't have an analyst.
Well, 2:30 a.m. last night, I'm washing the kit.
This is what I mean.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. It's probably more hours work at this level because of the manpower. You don't have the people. So I would love to have an analyst that we could maybe pay for, but we don't have obviously the capability to do that at the moment. But then at the same time, I know I'm like, because I am compulsive, would I trust someone to go and watch the games for me and tell me what they're about? Yeah. No chance, right? So when my time that I work and do my sort of slough business, okay, it is usually 10 o'clock onwards when my wife goes to bed, and I'll stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning because I know from 10 o'clock till 2, agents are asleep, players are asleep, and that's my peaceful time. So I don't go to bed most nights till probably 1:30, and I'll sit there and watch YouTube. I'll watch Step 3 games, Step 4 games, I'll watch Sunday League games, I'll go on Scout, and that's the time where I can actually relax. But I know you won't want to delegate and hand things over because it ultimately falls on you if you get it wrong.
Exactly. That sound familiar, Jules?
Yeah. Even like when I started my my goalkeeping, people were like, "I should get extra coaches in to help you," and I'm like, I don't know if they're going to do it like I want it done, sort of thing. And so I completely get that because everyone's got an opinion. We could watch a game of football now, and Scott will have a different opinion to me. So how we watch a game and how we decide we're going to get the best out of that is individual, and that's what separates us, I guess.
And you also mentioned a couple of things there, Scott, that maybe Jules already knew, but certainly again can take on going forward. But if there was one piece of advice that you would say now, that if someone had told you, maybe before that Tunbridge game when you didn't think you could quite, be the manager that you've become, but is there one piece of advice, apart from the 2 game times when you face each other, obviously, but is there one piece of advice that you could say to Jules?
I think for me, I asked the question that day to one of my mentors, and I was really sort of fixed on trying to get a team that wanted to do things the right way and play football, this, that, and the other. And asked the question is, do you focus on your strengths or do you try and focus more on nullifying the opposition? Because we don't have a team full of superstars and we can't go out and sign the best players in the league, I thought, how do we bridge that gap? Do we try and become even better with the ball, or do we actually set up any games to go, actually, no, we're not going to be focused on how good we're going to be with the ball, but we're going to stop them from being good. And we completely flipped our mindset that day. So we were like, no, we're going to be really hard to beat. We're going to get in people's faces. We're going to go and press teams. And that's what we became. We'll very rarely spend time on a training pitch doing passing patterns, right? Because ultimately, if we do that, we're probably not going to be as good as your Dawkins, Weston-super-Mares, your Worthings, who are excellent football teams. But one thing we can do is that we can maybe bridge that gap by working even harder and working smarter. So that was me. I had to try and figure out what type of team we were going to be. But aside from that, I think for me, it's all about the changing room. I think that for me just absolutely is absolutely everything. So my change room last year that I was able to create with the help of my management team was one of the best I've ever had. So the vibes and whatever you call it, brilliant. Like such good
Those
people.
are so important though, aren't they?
Yeah, no arrogance, leave your ego at the door. But to be fair, the lads didn't even need to leave their ego at the door because they didn't have one. And I was very lucky with the recruitment last year that we got it right. And I know Jules has got some fantastic lads in his change room because I know them. And like I said, there's a part of me that wishes I was 30 and Jules rang me this summer saying, right, do you want to come and sign for me? Because I'd love to be able to to obviously work under someone like him and Luke and people that are at the club. I know it's a fantastic club and it's very similar to us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, have you had any disagreements about any players coming in or out or anything yet, or nothing like that?
We've had conversations.
You've had conversations.
Yeah, we've had conversations about players, and we've gone for some similar players.
Because he says it sounds similar. What you said there about changing room and having, I mean, Jules, the watchword that you've had for most pre-season interviews, warriors, isn't it? The people that will run and challenge and do and just work their socks off. Obviously, with the football ability as well, but that's important.
Of course.
So Chimes, it sounds like when you two are going to face each other, it's going to be very
it'd be good.
tactical.
It'd be good. It'd be good.
Hampton versus Slough Rugby Club.
We won't talk each other. Yeah. But no, I like it's. Again, it's when you speak to managers and you ring people and words of advice and chats. It's be hard to beat. Be hard to beat. If you're hard to beat, you got a base to work from. We've tried to create, listen, I believe they're good football players when they come in and I meet them, or I've known them from previous, all that kind of stuff. I believe they're good football players, and it's like, okay, who now is the human being? Because are we going to go through tough times this season? I'd be foolish to say no, we're not. We're going to have tough times where we lose games, we go on a run of games where we might not get results. Hopefully we win every week. Okay, we're going to try our very best to do that, but I've been in football long enough to know that there's going to be tough times. And I've seen it before that good people come through tough times. If you go through tough times with not the best people, it's hard to turn that around. So I believe I've got good players, but more importantly than that, I believe I've got good human beings.
So Jules, very recently a player, and there's a few players that will know you as a player and played against you and with you. Scott, you obviously, how do you went from player as well to then becoming a manager literally overnight, one game on Saturday and you're a manager on Tuesday. That's a balance to be struck as well, isn't it? From being one of the lads, especially someone as vocal as Jules, to then being the boss.
I think we're very, very similar. So I'm 100 miles an hour. I'm not saying I'm the funniest person in the changing room, but I like to be in and amongst it. And I'll be picking on people's insecurities and whatnot. As you do, you have a bit of banter with the lads. My biggest fear, and I remember going to sleep on the Friday night before the first game that I took over on the Saturday, my biggest fear was doing the team talk. So I'm thinking, I've never done one before. I don't know what to say. I'm going to have to fake it. So I remember watching the Arsenal documentary, the Arteta one, and I thought, I'm not Mikel Arteta, but I've not got the answers. And I need to kind of give myself an idea and understanding, almost fake it to the lads a little bit, I'll be honest. I had to show a bit of vulnerability. So I wrote up this word fight down the left-hand side of the board, and I was like fearless, and I put in possession, out of possession. I was for intelligence. G was for grit, in the game and out of the game. When you're in hard moments and whatnot, you've got to stay grit and determined and all that. H was heart, I think it was, and then the T, I can't remember, probably tear up or something. But it's, I just thought I need to try and pretend that I know what I'm doing, because that fear in me, and that was the hardest thing. I love doing team talks now because I'm organised and I'm going in there knowing that I've prepped. So obviously that prepare to fail to prepare thing, I can't be guilty of that. We are going to lose games of football, of course, but I'll give 100% to the lads, and the management team would do the same, like the first team coach would give them the information, assistant as well. So it is a collective, but it is hard. You see some of the lads kind of giggling a little bit when my first one, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think for me it shows that I did care, and the lads could see that and they bought into it. And to be fair, they could have flipped it and gone the other way. They could have thought, this is going to be a bit of a holiday camp and we're going to have a laugh, but the lads made it as good as it could be from the way that they carried themselves.
And Jules, have you found that difficult at all, that transition from being someone so dominant in the changing room? Obviously, I know you're a coach as well, but as a player, you were always one of the, in the dressing rooms when I've been in there with you, you've been one of the loudest ones. Now you're going to have to be loud, but also with in a different way, aren't you? Or a slightly different way.
I think it was actually harder last year. So when I went from player to coach last year, because it was overnight, it was bang, and that especially because Dean Inman was here, and we're so close, and it's like I knew the team before he did, and that was hard. That was hard for me. That was really hard for me. But then when this happened, I thought I had a little taste of it there. And then I looked at it and I was like, right, actually, and I actually believe now that maybe some of the players have found it harder than what I have. in a weird sort of way. But so far, from the day one in pre-season, it's been brilliant. The players they've responded so well to how I've been and what me and my staff have tried to put across and how we're doing things. Yes, there's always going to be like Alex Wall, for example. I've known him 14 years. Jake Gray, I've been played with him for 4 years. Robert, do you know what I mean? Like, so there's history there with some of these players, but they've been class. And this is one thing I said to them. I said, listen, my friendship will always be there, but it needs to just go on the shelf for this period of time, however long that lasts, because I've got a job to do and we want to do it to the best we can. But what fills me with confidence is how hard I work. So I know how hard I work, and that actually gives me a little bit of confidence going forwards. If I felt like I was cheating and cutting corners, then I'd probably make me nervous.
Yeah.
But because I know I'm
like you were as a player, you never cut corners as a player.
Yeah, as a player, I just knew I'd eat right, I'd sleep right, I'd train right, I'd do all these things to prepare myself for Saturday. It might not go well, you might not get the result you're looking for, but at least I'm prepared, and that made me confidence come 3 o'clock on a Saturday. And I feel the same now. Listen, we're going to win and lose games of football. That's life. Yeah. But as long as I'm doing that work in the week, that puts me in a good place mentally.
So, in short, it's a good idea that Dean Inman's the other side of the world.
I agree.
Yeah.
Long way away.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Because I know Jules is like probably the least big time person I've ever met. Yeah, but when I took over, I couldn't be called Gaffer. Right, it made me really awkward. So a couple of the new lads were going Gaffer, and I was like, no. I said that word's banned, because that imposter syndrome with me, it made me feel really awkward. And I know there is a hierarchy at the club, that the board are above me, and then it's me, and then it's the team, and that. But for me, I try and stress that we're all on one level, because I don't know, I think it just allows them to be a little bit more comfortable in their surroundings, right? So obviously everyone's different, but for me it was almost like, right, I'll be at your level, but just have that respect that's equal and whatnot when I do the team talks and little bits and pieces. But it's finding out what works for you. Like, I named the team on a Thursday night, which I don't think any other non-league manager does. I've yet to hear one that does it. And they said, why do you do that? And I said, well, because when I get there on a Saturday, you name the team at 2 o'clock, 5 lads' heads go dunk, 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 right? And then the warm-up goes, you go and do the warm-up, you've got 5 lads sulking. Whereas you tell them on a Thursday night, they've got 36 hours to get out of their system and be ready to do it. But then some people will say, well, what if they're not playing? They might go out on a Friday. Well, if they go out on a Friday, they're not going to be at the club the following day. So that's the way that I am. But I give everything. Jules will give everything, and I know that I can name the team on a Thursday night. So it's just what works for you. But yeah, listen, I genuinely hope that it's a great season for you guys. Hopefully we finish one place above you, and that's up the top end of the league. But we know it's going to be tough for both of us. It's a relentless league this year. Some massive teams in it.
It was a relentless league last year as well. There was one team that was dominant throughout the whole time, and given I'm born and bred and from Somerset, well, it wasn't the worst thing to see. But what this year, do you think it was slightly different? There's a lot more teams of similar levels. There's obviously the stronger teams, of course. But how do you see the National League South this year?
Yeah, I think so. Who knows? But I think last year, if you'd have asked most people who were going to win it, they would have said Yeovil. I think it's a little bit more spread this time around. One thing for sure, it's going to be a tough season for sure. But yeah, I'd agree. Yeovil will probably stand out favourites last year. I wouldn't go as. There's obviously a few, but not like last year.
Same with
I think more spread.
Do you know what? We used it as fuel last year. I think I screenshotted every prediction that I seen on Twitter for the league. Slough 21st, 23rd, 24th. I think the highest that someone had us was maybe 19th. And I can see why. They did it with a new manager, someone that's young, someone that's still playing. But this year I've seen some predictions. Someone had us in third. I would snap your hand off for third. Right, of course I would. But my sort of mindset says, right, can we try and avoid relegation and then finish as high as we can? All right, because you don't know where that's going to take you. So last year was like a dream season for us. We were competing for the playoffs, I think still to the penultimate game of the season. And we didn't expect that as a club. A good FA Cup run is always great. But I think this year, there's always an anomaly in there that sort of you see an Avery in the playoffs with no one expected. Yeah. And you always think, well, why can't that be us? And I know Jules will be thinking it inside without saying it. I'm thinking it inside without saying it because it'd be stupid to say it. But you just hope, there's that glimmer of hope. You think, right, can we go and do it? But until a ball's kicked on August the 10th and then probably a few months on, you have no idea where you're going to be in the league. It's like the championship of non-league. It's so unpredictable. There are some great sides. If I had to predict the winner now, anyone could be my guess. I know there's some loud noise coming from Dorking, and rightly so. They've been extremely successful in the league, but yeah, I wouldn't want that target on my back to be the big team in the league. I quite like being the underdog. Yeah,
definitely. And finally, obviously you two are sat here now and we've had a great conversation, and the advice and thoughts and the empathy is flowing back and forth. But obviously when you come here and when we come to you, as soon as that whistle blows, it's all not all bets are off, but you know what I mean. Are you looking forward to, as part of the challenge of being a manager? You're looking forward to actually challenging yourself?
I'm sure Scotty will be the same. Well, I don't know, but for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, however long the game lasts, I have so much respect for this guy, and I really like him as a human being. But for that hour and 45 minutes, that has to, just the same as I was speaking about my players just now, the friendship goes there. He's going to want to beat me desperately, and I'm going to want to desperately beat him. After the game, we have a beer, we shake hands, and we become friends again. But for that period of time, we want to win, right?
100%.
Yeah, I mean? Of course. I wouldn't want it any other way.
No, absolutely.
That's the game. The friendship has to go out the window, and you become rivals for an hour and a half, and then you have a beer after the game. I remember a game last year, we beat Taunton 4-0 away, and I've got a really good relationship with their previous manager, Rob Dre. And we were 3-0 up, and it was getting a bit like LA, passing the ball around. They were down to 10 men. I felt guilty because the respect I've got for Rob is up there. And I just said I didn't really enjoy the game, even though we won 4-0. It's not right. It's about, I would rather both teams play well and the best man win. And I know come Christmas time, like it was last Christmas, there'll be two great games. Was it Christmas and Easter, I think, this year? So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we've got a little bit of a cushion beneath us at that point, but who knows? It's going to be a roller coaster season. There'll be springs and surprises all over the place, and we'll see what it brings.
Just depends if I'm looking down the touchline and he's in the dugout on the pitch. Then that's,
Well, yeah. And final question: there might be some people that have watched this who don't really know too much about non-league football. They've got through this because of the two personalities here. We're talking about two people that have been involved in football and managers, and it's nice to really see behind the curtain of what happens. But there might be what makes you've been involved at big clubs. Both of you have been involved at big clubs. What makes non-league football something that someone should go to see, should support, should enjoy? Because I think it's respected across the world, but we should have even more people watching the games, because you've mentioned the standards that you hold your players and yourself to. The quality is so much better than perhaps 20 years ago. That's no disrespect.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first signed in non-league football, and if I can compare that to the standard now, fast forward in 15 years or whatever it was, it's gone up so much. I think the depth, the level in England's incredible, to be fair. Like, players filter out from top clubs all over the place and make the level very, very strong. But what makes non-league special for me is the relationship between the supporters and the players and the stuff and all that kind of stuff. I think that's quite a special thing. When you play a high level of football, you're almost separate. You don't have that integration, and sometimes it could be a headache when you've had a bad game and you go in the bar afterwards and everyone's not happy with you for whatever reason. But that's life. But no, I like that. I like that side of it. To be fair, and I think that's something that can really be enhanced.
I think it's the fans and the volunteers, the sense of inclusion. Like, you go into the bar after the game, you spend 2 hours in there. My family don't go into the bar anymore because I don't have time to speak to them. It's the truth. Like, you speak to the fans and you talk about the game and they ask you questions, and it's great. And I know a lot of people now that have binned off their EFL Premier League season tickets and gone to their local club. And like I say, we are massive on sort of building that relationship with our supporters. We walk the perimeter of the pitch after a game, we give them high fives and say thank you. So a lot of the fans have said to me it's been a brilliant idea doing that, and it's just those small things that add up. Kids that are stood with their Slough shirts on that are now becoming hardcore supporters that are there for the future, and it's those little minor things. And I'm sure Jules will get it here if you start down the bottom end of the corner and walk up the hill. So, but it's I like it. That's my favourite time of the week. If you win a game at home and you go around and you say thanks to the supporters and you walk in the tunnel, and it's a great day.
Brilliant. Not many better adverts for non-league football than that, but thanks very much for joining us, both of you. That was the first episode of
Good luck,
Under the
Scotty.
Stand.
Thanks, mate.
Good luck for
Nice
the
to see you.
season. I'm sure.
Thank you very
Who knows?
much.
We might be here very again soon.
Let's
maybe
hope so.
after.
Let's hope so.
After
Yeah.
after the first game between each other. But thanks very much.
Nah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome.